Alrighty, folks, let's talk about some of the social impacts of the Cold War. So first and foremost, it is important to understand that at this time period, everyone is suspicious of one another. Okay, there's kind of this whole like keep your head on a swivel situation going on. Not everyone is certain whether or not there are communists around them. People are just kind of afraid of one another, and there's going to be a number of reasons for this. But McCarthyism is really going to play a huge role in this, and then the FBI is going to be having informants working secretly for them and trying to help people figure out what's going on. People are afraid of losing their jobs in the events of being falsely accused of being a communist. Remember, HUAC is going to be accusing individuals of communism, bringing them forth and forcing them to testify and prove that they are not a communist. Remember, it's a lot easier to prove you are something than it is to prove you are not something. So if you get accused of being a communist, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to have some major repercussions from that. And one of these things is losing your job. So people are very afraid of being accused of being a communist and then losing their job. Loyalty oaths are going to be required for virtually all jobs. And now this is not something that's required just for government jobs. This is going to be pretty much any job across the country that you are working, be it from the person who is delivering your mail to teachers, to the person simply working in the local steel mill. So these are going to be really important. These are things that are going to be happening all across the country, and it's going to really show how afraid of communism everyone in the United States is going to be. Blacklists are going to be coming out, and these blacklists are going to be prevalent. This is where you're simply going to make a list of individuals who are not going to be hired. It's not like actually making an official list. More than anything, is kind of spreading the news that, hey, this person's a communist, we're not going to hire them, and then you are not going to be able to find a job. This is going to be particularly prevalent in the film industry. However, it's going to take place in a lot of other fields as well. Most of these blacklists are as a result of alleged communist ties. So again, not necessarily proven to be a communist, just alleged to be a communist. Now, the social impact of the Cold War. Okay, so we're going to have a number of bomb shelters appear across the United States. Now, remember, this is the era of nuclear paranoia. Remember when we talked about Duck and Cover, Bert the Turtle, that propaganda film that was shown to children in school to make sure you duck and cover to protect from the nuclear blast. There is paranoia of a nuclear attack all around the United States. Now, this is due to the arms race. This is also due to the overseas nuclear threat. The fear that the Soviets are going to develop a nuclear weapon that will be able to get to the United States, and that they will use this weapon on the United States of America. So bomb shelters are going to be appearing across the United States. As you can see right here, this is a do-it-yourself shelter being advertised in Time magazine. You can see it right here. Here's how you build a bomb shelter in your basement. A number of buildings throughout the United States that were built at this time period had these fallout shelters built inside of them. My university, for example, had a fallout shelter built in it that I used to sneak into with another friend and do homework because we're history nerds. But these things are going to be going all over the country. You can actually still find these in a number of different buildings throughout the United States. They're converted into other things now, like my elementary school had a library that was a former fallout shelter. But these things are going to be prevalent all over the United States. Again, this widespread fear of communism going across the United States, the Red Scare, going to be influencing a lot of different things as we're talking about right now. Culture is permeated with anti-communism. Okay, anything that's going against communism is going to be prevalent all around culture. And this is because the Americans are afraid that their way of life is being threatened by the Soviets. Okay, communism is threatening their way of life. Communism is threatening their democratic principles, okay, their foundations, their constitution, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, freedom of speech, religion, freedom of the press, the ability to speak out and protest against your government. Americans are afraid that these principles are being threatened as a result of communism. Ironically, some of these different principles would be taken away because of the fear of communism, like freedom of speech. Talking about a communist, you're going to have some backlash coming at you right through there. Couldn't think of the word. There's also the fear of losing their consumer goods, consumer material values. So, for example, Americans like Coca-Cola. They're afraid that the communism comes in. These material goods are not going to be there. Bye-bye Coca-Cola. Bye-bye McDonald's. Okay, Hershey's chocolate. All these different capitalist American products. They're afraid that the communists will come in and get rid of this type of system right through there. HUAC is going to hold the film industry incredibly scared. Okay, they're going to make a number of anti-communist films like The Wild Bunch and My Son John. You can see right here these different films that are really propaganda, talking about how bad communism really is. Again, the blacklist going on in Hollywood. Number of different individuals in Hollywood are accused of being communist and forced to testify. We're going to get the 10 who refuse to testify and are held in contempt of Congress, as we've talked about. But film industry is going to be scared. The film industry, though, is going to push back with a series of allegories, like High Noon with Gary Cooper, born and raised in Helena, Montana, fellow Montanan right over there, and The Crucible, okay, Arthur Miller. The Crucible I know you read in school, in virtually every school that I can think of. The Salem witch trials, the accusations based really on no fact right through there, ending with their death, okay, they're hanged as a result of being accused of being a witch, just like people are losing their entire livelihood for simply being accused of being a communist, even if they have no real proof of them being a communist. Now, moving on, television is going to be influential at this time period. And this is going to be the birth of TV news. Okay, the television has been around before, but this is really when it's going to start taking off. Okay, kind of this golden age of television. We're going to get Edward R. Murrow in his program See It Now, where he's going to take on McCarthy. This isn't just news being spread in newspapers anymore. The news is now coming on TV where people can physically watch it. Edward R. Murrow is going to take on McCarthy and really challenge McCarthy for his allegations based on nothing really more than hearsay. And Edward R. Murrow is going to have a lot of success in really challenging McCarthy right through there. Education is going to be used as a tool to fight communism. I believe it was Hitler who talked about using the youth to manipulate the future. And in reality, this is a pretty effective psychological tool. Children are the ones that are easiest to convince. It's much easier to convince a child to do something than it is to convince an adult to do something. So you're going to use education to convince children that communism is bad, and that they must be capitalist. They must be proud to be American. And we're going to see this in stuff like the Pledge of Allegiance, okay, which is going to add the phrase "under God" in 1954. Previously, it was just "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." But then in 1954, "One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." Now, this is done to distance the United States from the Soviet Union, which is an atheist country. So just like with the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, how a number of Islamic individuals are going to come to fight against that and preserve the Islamic heritage of Afghanistan, the Americans are afraid of this right through here. They want to make sure that their heritage of being a country with faith is going to be preserved, and that the Soviets and the communists are not going to come and take this over. Compulsory classroom patriotism. You are forced to say the Pledge of Allegiance. You are forced to be patriotic. This is going to come about in the National Defense Education Act in 1958. So you are forced to be patriotic in the classroom. Now, this, you could argue, would be going against the First Amendment freedom of speech, where you can say what you want and have that be protected. However, this is going to be happening in the United States at this time period as a result of that fear of communism. So you can kind of look at this double-edged sword right here, afraid of your democratic principles being taken away, but at the same time, the reason they're being taken away is because people are afraid of them being taken away. This is going to lead to the debate of education or indoctrination. Are you giving people an education where they're allowed to think for themselves? Are you indoctrinating them and trying to get them to think what you would like them to think? This is a good discussion that we will be having. But be able to argue this kind of mindset right through here. Was the United States really educating children at this time, or were they indoctrinating children? Lastly, we're going to get nuclear Holocaust literature coming about at this time period, such as Fahrenheit 451 and George Orwell's 1984. Wonderful book. Talking about these kind of totalitarian states watching over everything, end of the world type of stuff. Big Brother is watching you. These things are going to be coming about at this time period, and nationalism is high. Americans are proud to be American. You are American. They are red, white, and blue. Freedom fries, freedom dogs, all these different things like that. Okay, freedom. Jesus in America. These are the real big things going on right here. This is really typical in a time of war. It's not an actual fighting war, except for when Korea happens, but it's going to be a Cold War, okay? There's this conflict going on between capitalism and communism, Americans and Soviets. American nationalism is rampant. Questions, comments, put it below. Otherwise, good luck.